Did Barack Obama say the Democrats have abandoned young men? Well, sort of.
Former President Barack Obama appeared on Michelle Obama and her brother Craig Robinson's podcast, IMO, last week. The trio spoke about a number of issues, including raising emotionally intelligent boys in a digital age and giving them a healthier future. During the discussion, Obama criticized progressives and Democrats like himself for not being willing to be, quote, intentional about investing in the boys. Let's watch.
Democrats, progressive parents, enlightened ones, we've made that mistake sometimes in terms of our rhetoric, where it's like we're constantly talking about, what's wrong with the boys instead of what's right with them. We rightly have tried to invest in girls to make sure that there's a level playing field and then they're not barred from opportunities.
Obama adds,
but we haven't been as willing, I think, to be intentional about investing in the boys, and that's been a mistake. And I think people are starting to recognize that. So going back to your optimism, I think there's a healthier conversation taking place now, both among this new generation of young women and men, but also among the public at large.
President Trump swung young men to the right in the 2024 presidential election. Democrats have since then shifted focus on winning this demography back to their side. Many potential Democratic contenders in the 2028 presidential race are making young voters a bigger priority, both in their policy proposals and in their messaging. I appreciate what Barack Obama said here. I think it was a good observation that I have very little criticism of, frankly, in terms of his rhetoric. Where the criticism comes along.
I was like, wow, so we're done. Yeah, we're done.
He knew it was coming. His policies, his administration's policies were so anti-male, anti-young male, the most anti-young male administration in history.
I don't understand the connection.
I will explain.
Okay.
That is in terms of Title IX enforcement on university campuses was insane. In 2011, I believe it was 2011, I used to do a lot of reporting on this. This was my main journalism beat for a long time, was Title IX coverage. The Office for Civil Rights, which is a component of the Department of Education, this was under Barack Obama, sent a letter to colleges and universities reinterpreting Title IX and saying it's no longer just about women get to have equal opportunities and you have to have female sports teams and have to include women, you can't discriminate against women, that kind of, they said it's not, Title IX just isn't about that, even though literally that's what the statute says, which dates from the 1970s. They said, where you interpret Title IX to mean you must also go outlaw and investigate sexual, gender-based harassment and misconduct and speech. And so there were all of these cases against women too, but mostly against young men for dating police type stuff, for comments, for remarks that did procedures that did not comport with due process whatsoever, that threw justice out the window. These were terrible policies that were in place in every university, and the administration threatened to sue colleges that didn't go after these things. It was a disaster. Even Ruth Bader Ginsburg said at one point in an interview that she thought some of these policies were going way too far and were just ignoring basic liberal principles of guilt, innocent until proven guilty. So Barack Obama's administration did that. It was a huge mistake and overreach, and Trump reversed it, and then Biden came back in and reinstated it all. I don't follow it as closely as I used to. I'm sure it's still a mess, but those are the anti-male policies for you.
I think self-awareness is a big deal, and so we're seeing that former President Obama has that in this interview and can be aware. He even looked inward and said, our policies, us as a party, he said a lot of things like that.
Not just anti-male, by the way, but anti-black. You talked in your radar about how Breonna Taylor, your view of it as an issue affecting black women. So I should then point out, even though this would not be my first thing when I discuss this, that by far disproportionately the people wrongfully pursued and disciplined and kicked out of campus and their lives ruined under Obama's Title IX policies were disproportionately black men.
So that is an opportunity for him to, and he's been criticized in multiple ways by doing either too little or too much, focusing on the black community, or because he is the first black president, right, or doing too little. So it comes from both ends. But what I think is that he went on this podcast and was vulnerable enough to say what should be changed and what he thinks the future looks like. But also it's kind of like one of those things, like everybody can say these things when it's like a safe space. Like right now, it's appropriate to be vocal. But I think for the entire time that President Trump was president after him, for the entire time that Joe Biden was president, and even campaigning as the decision was made between Kamala and Trump, were great times for him to speak up and be more vocal. And he kind of jumped into the campaign trail or stayed far back from politics. We saw George Bush do the same thing. When he left office, kind of stay back from politics for a little while. Rightfully so, especially when you're in that stage of your life for 8 years straight. I understand why you want to break, but it was
his
like
policies were terrible, so I didn't want to hear any more from him.
Well, I
on
think
policy,
the same thing with Bush.
frankly.
We can say that the same thing, but also.
I was talking.
Oh,
about
okay.
Bush.
I was like, okay,
I was
thought you were
talking.
talking about Obama. I'm like,
I was talking
okay.
about Bush. Well, I talked about both of them.
Well, my point is that's what people stayed out of that. Whatever you thought about them, they have the right to stay out of the public persona, or if they want to. But at the same time, the party has been, this is not a new thing that we're talking about, crying for some leadership, crying for an attachment to males. Obama has that charisma that has always translated, no matter what party. Everybody knew that you said he was the GOAT Democratic president. You mentioned that earlier, or people perceived GOAT. And so
he is charisma. There's
so
way
in
around
that way, he should have made sure that as a male himself, you connect with males in a way, or help strategize the way to connect with males. He still connects with young males right now.
Well,
people look at him and say, oh, wow, Obama. Some people say my forever president. All these different stages coming from different young people. So it's like, okay, well, people who didn't get to experience as an adult, he and Michelle in the Oval Office.
Put radical,
so he should,
feminist women in charge of his education.
Well, there was a need for a correction, and just like there was a need for a correction with Me Too, there was a need for a correction with cancel culture. Sometimes we overcorrect, and that's why we bring the pendulum back. But the fact that we are protecting vulnerable groups that generally are marginalized in those ways, like women, like people of color, and people are trying things and they go a little bit too far, like transgender people. Like, okay, so bring it back to the middle, and he's open to that conversation.
Trump is
and
the
that
result
should be
of
admirable.
The overcorrection.
Right, and now we overcorrected way too far with Trump.
Trump producing factory.
And we overcorrected with Trump, and so we'll see the next result of the next.
Now we overcorrected. And
overcorrected.
We just pendulum
just
back
keeps
and
going
forth.
back and forth. And that's why that was so interesting, the last interview when we were talking about a centrist Project 2029. It's like, why are there so people that won't get on the agenda of centrist conversations, or like meeting in the middle?
The pendulum swings like this. So you want
I know,
this,
but why every time
and you
people
want this,
complain
but
so
it never
much about-
remains in the center.
It's like Bernie Sanders or Trump, and it's like, why can't there be some
Yeah.
type of in-between that works well? I think we've seen those type of candidates pop up, like John McCain, like Mitt Romney, like, we've seen that.
But I don't know if I like those policies better.
don't?
I don't think the American people do either. Then
I
you
love
get
John McCain.
Well, I admire his service to our country, and there are things they said that he was nice, but his policies were, on foreign policy, I think, I would prefer Trump's policies to John McCain's, at least on foreign policy.
Erratic friendships, free Qatari jets. I know, I understand. Why you like
destroying the nation
Trump's
of Iraq
policies.
is maybe not erratic, but it was bad.
Well, going into Iran for 12 days because Israel says so is also erratic, but also bad. It wasn't necessary at the time.
We destroyed we killed thousands and thousands and thousands and
We
thousands.
can go on and on
of
about the
people.
mistakes that both.
Well, I would like to go out about the mistakes
everyone who
if
ran
you're
for
going to bring
president
up
made.
relatively, comparatively trivial things Trump
Trivial?
has done. Well, the Iran War is trivial compared to the Iraq War. The Iraq War was a multi-year,
Which spanned
gazillion-dollar
across Trump's
investment
presidency.
in destroying their country. That was bad. That I think was bad, and that everyone thinks is bad. It has no defenders left.
Yeah, I don't.
And
think
yet
that-
we like.
I'm not arguing that
and
it's
yet
good. I'm saying
you
somebody's
and-
centrist on policies
You and
is
liberal
something
Democrats
that
think
people
the
need.
Republicans of that era, they were nicer and they were friendlier, and so we like them more. I agree.
Yeah,
George
they knew how
W.
to-
Bush
They knew how to
seems
share
like a
candy
nice
with
person.
Michelle Obama.
Right, and
right,
that's
and like
nice,
they know how to share
but
candy.
it is also trivial.
Okay.
It also doesn't matter.
Well-
It's nice. I like it, but I think it is a mistake to then say, and so I must have liked those policies, but no, those policies were not better. They just weren't. I mean, if you like them better, you like them better, but most people don't.
Well, I think decorum.
All Democrats
Decorum
and
in
most
office is a
Republicans.
big deal, having a bit of that, and so Trump lacks that, and so even a good listener can understand that if you can't get the message across as a leader of a company, of a country.
Now we're like tone police.
No, we're not. We're like, literally, he's condescending, he's rude, he throws people out of the press pool, he calls people names, he calls women names. Like, the same person that's, like, aggravating all people. It's like, what are we talking about?
I
It's
can't
not
help but
childish. You
say
don't want
so
that.
what in response to that. When the alternative was, when you're going to put on a shining example is again someone whose foreign policy was ruinous.
Trump is ruining. He's ruining right
He's
now.
Ruining
he's ruining the economy.
He's ruining your brain is what he's ruining.
He's
ruining
rotting all of our brains.
Yeah. That is all right. Well, I've said all I need to say there. Got a lot more to talk about on Rising. Stay with us.